John Cage once said, "One need not fear for the future of music." Good evening, one and all. I, Fatima Hanna, welcome you all to Tarangatalam. We, the students of Bebop Department of CMS College Kottayam, under the guidance of Principal Dr. Verghese C. Joshua, Assistant Professor Miss Minnie K.L. Pillai, and Head of the Department Mrs. Rashmi Cherian, proudly bring to you the Tarangatalam. We hope to hear from esteemed guests about tech opportunities for future and sound. I am very proud to announce to you that we have a very special as well as talented guest joining us today. And yes, we are very blessed to have Mr. Sreejesh Nair with us. Sreejesh Nair is an award-winning Indian sound engineer and sound mixer. He has worked in Tamil, Malayalam, Hindi, and Marathi movies. Mr. Sreejesh Nair, an eminent TEDx speaker, National Film Awardee, sound specialist Abid Dubai. Some of the most popular work of Mr. Sreejesh Nair include Jodha Akbar, Pilla 2, Agnipath, Dark Knight, and many more. I proudly welcome TEDx speaker and sound technology expert Sri Sreejesh G. Nair to this auspicious occasion.
Of course. At this point, I just realized I was speaking with my mic muted. Am I audible now? And just have the chat window open as well. Yeah. So, and thank you so much, Fatima, for that beautiful intro of me. When you hear good things spoken about oneself, for me it feels I'm not used to it. So, and thank you so much for putting those in a nice way as well. Quick question. Let me just share my screen now, and you can let me know if you can see the screen. Hi. So is my screen visible? Can you see the screen share? Just type a yes or something.
Yes.
Thank you. You can just let me know when you want to start or however you want to go through on this. Well, I must also tell you all. So I have a 1.5-year-old at home as well. So occasionally you may be hearing screams and laughters that are obviously not mine. So in these interesting times, I feel that is also part of the whole game. And I think, yeah, we'll see if we can keep it to a minimum. But knowing 1.5-year-olds, it's entirely their world, isn't it? So you can let me know whenever you want me to start, and yeah, we can go on that. So the reason I'm looking up is because I have another screen up there, and that's where I can see my chats as well. Um, it's not that I'm just looking up just so that, and you can type in your questions whenever you have any questions on anything. I did get a couple of questions that I'll try and answer as well. You can type in your questions at any time on this on the chat as well, and we can go through that. Right. So Mini says ASAP. So Mini, I assume we can start now. Thank you. You know, first of all, uh, I would like to extend a big thank you to all of you who have come to this, because it is one thing listen to someone blabber about sound or a field that they are really interested in, or they've been working for a long time. It's a completely different thing when you decide to invest 2 or 3 hours of your life into hearing what the other person has to speak. And you and I, we rarely go about on conversations for a long time without talking to the other person or just listening to the other person. So we can try and make this as interactive as you want. I will not be formal at all. So now you can hear the little one that I've been talking about in the background. Um, so I won't be quite formal on this. We will make this as interactive as we can, and the main thing is to ask questions, because while most of the things are very clear in my mind, it may not be the same for you, because I have concepts that I've worked on for years in my mind, and a lot of these things are, I have really good clarity on that. But when I start speaking about this, it's very hard to find out how much I need to break this down. So rather than this presentation being a monologue, because I've never taught formally in a school or a college, so I'm not very used to this. The only thing I see is my 9-year-old at home when she has online classes, and that's where I pick up and see how teachers actually teach in this interesting time. Right. So the topic that we have today is how loud is the future, and one of the things that me as a person is, um, I'm not quite fond of the word loud. And the reason for that is, loudness in general seems to be something that has been completely misconstrued. People take loudness in completely different ways. There's been a whole thing about loud is good. You watch some of the serials on TV, you find, when you switch channels, some of them are extremely loud. At a time like this where we are not really, a lot of us are not going to the theaters right now, and it's going to take some time before theaters come back into our lives. So streaming is a big thing, and that's where the whole concept of loudness actually comes in from. And it's also a point of realizing that loud is not necessarily always good, because when I started my journey into sound, so I did my mechanical engineering at RIT in Kottayam itself. So I've been to CMS College very often as well. My cousin used to study in CMS College. He was BSc chemistry. There are a lot of interesting stories I have about CMS College. I've been through there. So like for example, when my college is done, I would get the bus and come back all the way to CMS College. Would wait for my cousin because we used to live together at home. So he and I would then from there go across to the Indian coffee house near the transport stand, and we would sit there and try, and we had a couple of more friends from CMS College. We would sit there, we would talk, and then we would go back, probably in the last bus that we could get. So there are a lot of very lovely stories that I have from there as well. Anyways, so I did my mechanical engineering, and from there I figured, and one of the reasons I had two options. I can either get into engineering or medicine, and the reason I stuck with either of these options is, I am pretty bad at learning languages. and any other stream that I saw at that point of time, you had to have a second language, and I did not want to have another language. My main interest area was electronics and communication, but I ended up getting an admission for mechanical engineering in RIT Kottayam, and so that's how I ended up in engineering. But and if you look at me, if you look at a lot of engineers in general, you would see there's a shift. So you learn one specialty and you end up in a, like, for example, a lot of people who do mechanical engineering are software engineers now. There are a lot of people who do coding. There are a lot of people who've done their MBAs, and they're business managers and things like that. But what really helped me from the stream that I learned, or at least from the engineering part that I learned, is to not fear technology. And that is a big thing. See, when the thing about sound is, the fundamentals of all of these won't change. I mean, like, if you're a physics student, right? And you talk about strong forces or weak forces, or you talk about Brownian motion, or if you're a biology student and you talk about your chromosomes, and you talk about all of your the RNA strands or whatever, all of those things, the fundamentals for that don't change. It's how much more you build on that actually impacts your career. And that's what I learned early on. One of the things that I definitely did learn early on, and it took me a couple of years. It's not that I got into industry with a very strong foundation. No, because when you learn anything that you learn, whether it's your science subjects, whether it's your arts, or whether it's your commerce, or whatever it is, anything that you learn, for at least for me, I can tell you from my perspective, it was very hard to put it into a real life equation. There is this common thing, where will you ever use sine theta, cos theta in real life? If you, all that you want to do is go out and buy a kilo of sugar, that's not going to help you. But the main thing behind learning all of these things is not to think small. You always have to think big. And when you think big, you will understand why alternate streams, when a lot of people join alternate streams, there are two reasons why people do that. The primary thing being job security and money, absolutely. Second one being passion. Now, in my case, I decided to go for sound not because of job security and money. That is very hard to come by as a beginner in any industry. So what I did was I decided to go for sound because I had a very clear reason. And one of the clear reasons I had was, and I spoke to my dad about this as well. It's like, my dad was like, look, you finished mechanical engineering. What are you going to do doing, spending another year doing a diploma and doing sound? It's because he couldn't even see it as an engineering thing, right? I mean, anybody can do sound. And the reason for that is because sound by definition is invisible, and because it's invisible, anyone and everyone has an opinion on that. So it's very hard to define what is good sound and what is bad sound, because it's highly contextual and it's very subjective. It depends from person to person. About what happened was, so I told him, like, look, Dad, lawyers, engineers, doctors, you probably even know a pilot, and how many sound engineers do you know? And he said, yeah, I know none. And he said, and my response to that was, well, if you know none, isn't it easier to establish yourself as a lead player in an industry where there are not many players? At least that was my reasoning for that. And at a point, because imagine if you talk to people and you tell them, like, about being an esports player. Now, an esports player, if he or she spends an incredible amount of time sitting behind a console just playing games, and some of the esports players, they make millions. But if you were to talk about that as a career to your parents, it's not an easy conversation to have. So what drove me was passion. Now here is the fine line that you have to be very well aware of when it comes to passion. Um, when it comes to passion, there will be a point of time where you will burn out. And the reason for that is your passion can drive you so much, but unless you find a way to be motivated, it is not going to drive you more. It's like, when you get a toy for the first time, you spend, I don't know, a couple of hours, a few days playing with it, and after a point of time, you don't use that. Right? I remember when I got my first cycle, after I learned cycling, and when you got the cycle, I would just go everywhere. Even if it was going from my the door of my house to my gate, I would take the cycle. It's just because it was a new thing. And after a point, I started going to the shop on the cycle. I started going, buying things. And then I realized, like, okay, so my parents are actually sending me off to buy stuff. Fun. And then, you get tired. You don't want to go. You want to do other stuff. The same thing happens with passion. You need to find a way to keep yourself motivated. And you need to find a way to convert what you have as a passion into how you can make money from it. Because at the end of the day, everyone will have stress at some point. If you can't pay your rent, if you can't meet your expenses, and all of these are going to come in. So what you need to do with passion is to find a way to channel that into pushing you forward in your career. It can happen in a lot of things. I'll tell you how it worked in my case. Especially in my case, I see I was I can say that I was not really known until the national awards happened. And the national award, I was not the only person. It was a team effort. There were three of us who got the national award at that year. And I was not really known until that time. But what I did spend a lot of time was learning technology in a way that I can explain it to someone who is in the fifth grade. Here's the thing: if you can explain technology without using technical jargon, that shows how deep you understand this. Because you should be able to break it down in a simpler way. Like, I don't know. So, for example, integration and differentiation was one of the hardest thing that I've come across. I don't know how many of you feel that way. If you feel that way, you can just type a yes in the chat. Um, just so that I know that the two things I want to know is, I want to make sure my connection is going through, and I want to make sure people are listening at some point. Right. Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. It is all the reason I could never find out what integration was because I never it I mean it's I could not understand that for a long time because I didn't understand what it is actually telling you in a layman's sense, right? See, I'm assuming most of you understand Malayalam. So there is a saying in Malayalam, "Paladulli Perivellam." Uh, Paladulli Perivellam means, a lot of small components make up the big component, and that is exactly what integration is, isn't it? You're actually adding up very small components and getting a final result, which is an estimate of reality. It's not even reality because you integrate from one point to the other. You have a limit in as this tends to so and so. So you're not even hitting that. You're assuming this is the estimate. In a real life situation, this is exactly what you do, right? Like if you go out and buy a shoe and it's a nice shoe, they'll ask you like, how, and you someone asks you how much was it, and you say like it was around so and so cost. That around so and so cost is exactly how integration works. It's adding up a lot of small things to give you like an overall figure. And once you understand core concepts in a way that is very simple, um, none of the processes are actually very complex in anything. So a lot of us, take our passion, but we fail to look at the core concepts behind that. We fail to look at the very fundamental understanding of why this is so interesting. See, I mean, you've any physics students in this? So I can see, if I'm not mistaken, one of the entrants in this is my cousin. Um, I am not mistaken on that. Right. Any physics students in this? Just a quick overview. Can you let me know what all fields do you come in from? Just so that I know what kind of group that I'm looking at. I see there many says there's information technology, there's English literature, there's travel and tourism. Nice. Um, there's BTech, there's commerce. Right. So I'll try, and there's communication and journalism. Nice. So it's a very wide area of things. And what is interesting in all of these wide areas is at some point of time you have to kind of go through some of the fundamentals of things. Travel and tourism. So a quick question before I just go ahead. It's always to make this interactive as well. So travel and tourism, when you because it's also important that I address and I speak just type in the chat that what is it that you are expecting from me as a presenter as well, and I'll see if I can cover that as part of the presentation. um, right, so I've been going on that. So I hope this concept is a bit clear, because stress this, I can't stress this enough. And the fact is, understand your core speciality in a way that you can use it in your communicative language. If I need to explain something, it should not be that I only understand the technology so much that I can only explain it in English. അങ്ങനെ ആവരുത്. If I can explain my core specialty in my mother tongue, that is when I know I understand very well. Which means I have to use non-technical things, and I have to keep it as simple as possible. But a lot of times you can't really simplify things. It also depends on the person that you talk to, but as long as you understand the core concepts. So right, so coming back to this, so this is what I wanted to take you guys through, guys and girls, through. I will talk about the audio industry, what all it is covering, what all makes up the audio industry, the processes, what all is being done in this, technology, and the artistry. I won't. I will just be having like small bullet points and things like this on the slide, and that is because I don't want um, people to be really bored with PowerPoints. I myself am not a big fan of just presentation. But the reason I had this is because there's only so much that you can look at my face and listen to me talk. Something like this at least distracts you from this, right? So the audio industry now, in general, if I were to ask you, like, what do you think the audio industry is made up of? What are the fields that you think is there in the audio? What have you heard about? You can type it in the chat, and I'll just wait for that. It doesn't matter. There are no right questions and no right answers and wrong answers. And it is incredible because you can actually see a lot of very interesting fields within the audio field. So what things do you think might the audio industry be made of? Let me give you an example. Obvious one is a sound engineer who works in films. You have the music industry. What else? Singer, song production. What else can you think of? Anything? Wow, I didn't realize this was such a hard question. Like I said. Oh, okay. So it's not updating from my end. Recorders, music direction, music director, lyricist, field which manipulates sound frequency. Yes, I already covered most, which means that I leave no choice for everyone else, which is all interesting. But so all of this is actually covered. The main three core ones that I know of is you have film and streaming, which is like film and streaming would include film. Yes, of course. Varsha, background score is so music creation, sound mixing. Yes, it is part of the audio industry as well. You can keep typing. I'll glance occasionally at the chat as well. Um, so film and streaming, music and install and art. Yes, Ayush, dubbing as well. So if you look at the different processes that you have in let's say film and streaming, for example, so you have pre-production where you decide on what the story is, you have the script, and you do something that is called a raki. So as an example, let's say during Jodha Akbar. Now Jodha Akbar is a period film. It was it's done in a couple of centuries back is when the story is placed of Jodha and Jalaluddin. But where it was shot in a place called ND Studio, which is right outside of Bombay. It's in Navi Mumbai. It's in New Bombay. So there, that is actually next to an airstrip. So the problem is when you're shooting this and you're recording the actors' lines on location, and it's a period film. In a period film, you cannot have an aeroplane fly over you. So some of the things like that is actually a challenge. So what people do is they do something that's called a recce. A recce is basically you go, so the director, the cameraman, the production designer, the sound person, sound recorders, they all go to the location and they have a look and see if this is viable. Like for example, if you place the camera at so and so angle, where are you getting the wind from? How far can you place the generator if you're doing a location sound? So all of these things come under pre-production, and that is very important to do as well, because it is dubbing is not an easy thing. And the reason is the actors have to act twice, right? One on set when they are in the character, and if you have to dub the whole film, you have to be in a studio, in a closed room, like a dark room, watch what you've done on screen and try and reenact that character. It is an incredibly difficult process. I mean, you have to be a really, really good actor to do that. You have to get into the mindset of the actor. I'm sure if you've seen that Mohanlal Srinivasan film, you would understand when Srinivasan says about Stanislavski. And Stanislavski talks about the method acting, which is basically you become the character, and you imbibe that. So location recording is very key in such cases, because that's when you get the actual emotion of the actor, right? Here's another interesting thing. When you're talking with your friends, uh, and when you're amongst a lot of people, your conversational pitch is higher. You're excited, you're talking to people, you're projecting your voice, in case the other person is a bit far. So there is a lot of very little things that happen, and a thing like that is something that you need to be able to redo in a studio, in a controlled environment, which is not that easy. It is incredibly difficult, and you need incredible talent for that. So which is why a lot of films are actually tried and being done on location sound recording, and it's called sync sound. um, Bhopal Express was actually one of the first films that was commercially done, but one of the more famous films you will know is Lagan. And the sync sound recordist for Lagan was Nakul Kamte, um, which is interesting because I saw Lagan when I think I was in college, and I went and watched that in the theaters. And it took another 10 years before the DVD, and I was very lucky to be able to mix the DVD of Lagan, which is the one that is released right now. So somewhere down the line, you have some of your little bucket list of dreams that come true, which you would have never thought of. So coming back to this, so Lagan was when sync sound was done, and there's a very interesting process. So you have to record the characters on location. Once that is done, you have to be able to match that with what has been shot. Your sync has to be right. It should not be like I speak and then my sound comes. And sometimes, when characters get into the mood. So I don't know, has anyone seen a film called Agnipath? Right. So in Agnipath, there is a scene where Ritik is in his home having dinner with his mother and his sister, and it is a very emotional scene where he talks about what his father went through and his father's poetry. It is a very emotional scene, and what happens in a very emotional scene is you have to get everything down. You have to focus completely on the character. You should not let anything else distract you. And in that scene in the background, it was during the Ganpati festival, and in the background was outside where they were shooting was this whole band that was playing, and you had the tashas and all of those percussions and everything that is going on. It was incredible. And the most important thing was the performance that Ritik gave was so good. It was not easy to read up all of those things. There was there was this whole crack in his voice when he felt really sad, when you get that little lump in your throat. All of that was there. So we had to find a way to keep his lines and remove whatever happened in the back, because unfortunately that was not something that was in the team's control. Like Ganpati festival happens for 10 days, and you can't ask them to be silent or anything of that sort. Those are challenges that you would come across. So if you go back and watch that scene, you will see something which is in between his lines. So because he was in the character, he in his mind, the way he acted this out was he was hearing his father talk to him. So as he was saying the line, there were gaps between his lines. And what we did was, because those gaps were too long, and it was impossible to get out everything from that, every noise from that, because if you remove a lot of the noise, you kill the sound, it becomes lifeless. So there are these gaps that is there, and what we did in those gaps was, we put the father's line in there to fill those gaps. That was never there originally. So we put those father's line so that it covers the noise that is in the background, and you have the music, because the music had to be subtle. We cannot have a loud music because it's very emotional as well. We put these lines in between of the father, in between his lines, so that it feels as if, so what he acted was what we got out here. And what was interesting was this was completely accidental. Like, I did not know this is how Ritik acted, and I was not told that this is why the gaps were there. So I just put that to cover this, and it goes um, straight off as well. Okay, so I can, if at all there is anything that is unclear, എന്തെങ്കിലും ക്ലിയർ അല്ലാന്ന് തോന്നുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് ചാറ്റിലിടുക. മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയേണ്ടതാണെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയുക തന്നെ ചെയ്യാം. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിനകത്ത് സംഭവിച്ചൊരു കാര്യം എന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, ഈ പുള്ളിയുടെ ഒച്ചയുടെ പുറകിൽ വല്ലാണ്ട് ശബ്ദങ്ങളുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഈ അസമിന്റെ ഗണപതി ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ നടക്കുക കാരണം ഒരുപാട് ബഹളവും കാര്യങ്ങളും പുറത്ത് നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അത് കളയാൻ അത്ര എളുപ്പമുള്ള കാര്യമല്ല. അപ്പം അത് കളയുന്ന എങ്ങനെയാ? ഒരു സിമ്പിൾ ആയിട്ടൊരു ചോദ്യമുണ്ട്, വിച്ച് യു ക്യാൻ ട്രൈ ആൻഡ് ആൻസർ. ഹൗ ഡു യു ബിക്കം ഇൻവിസിബിൾ? വാട്ട് ഡു യു തിങ്ക്? എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക? It feels like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when they're looking for the fifth golden ticket. Silence silence will it make you invisible? Okay, no idea. Fair enough. That's a very honest answer, Thomas. By making everyone else blind. Yes, that's a lot of effort, but still not a wrong answer. Atul, uh, background should be seen. So in the children's answer is right. Stand perfectly still as told by tracks, as long as you eat the cracker really silently. Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility, background should be seen. Yeah, I like in the children's answer, stand perfectly still. Be the ninja. But the idea behind being invisible is, as long as people don't notice you, you are invisible. It is when people notice you that you are visible, right? It is not about seeing through you, it is about not noticing you. Because that's the same thing, in a lot of things, you can cover up a lot of things, thereby distracting you from one point that was there. So that is how you become invisible. The reason, when, like for example, okay, so Atul's answer, making everyone else blind. Again, it comes back to them not being able to see you, right? Background should be seen, which means the idea, I think, that Sharath is trying to say, Sharath പറയുന്നത് means നമ്മളുടെ അപ്പുറത്ത് കാണാൻ പറ്റുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് അല്ലേ? They see through you. Again, it is like not noticing you. Stand perfectly still, which works absolutely fine. Unfortunately, it did not work in the Avengers. Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility again comes back to the same point that Sharath says, right? It goes through you. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിനകത്ത് നടക്കുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യം എന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, ഇൻവിസിബിലിറ്റി ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മളിൽ പലരും പറയുന്നുണ്ട്, if you could become invisible, it is equivalent to a superpower. But the key to being invisible is not being noticed or not being seen. If you are not seen, how can you value something that is not seen? ശരിയല്ലേ? ഹിന്ദിയിൽ ഒരു ചൊല്ലുണ്ട്, ജോ ദിക്താ ഹെ വോ ബിക്താ ഹെ. നമ്മൾ കടയിൽ പോയിട്ട് സാധനം വാങ്ങുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അവിടെ കടയിൽ കാണുന്ന സാധനം നമ്മൾ നോക്കും. അൺലെസ് യു ഹാവ് എ വെരി സ്പെസിഫിക് ഐഡിയ ഓഫ് വാട്ട് യു വാണ്ട് ടു ബൈ, നമ്മൾ കടയിൽ പോയിട്ട് ഇന്ന സാധനം ഉണ്ടോ നമ്മൾ സ്പെസിഫിക്കലി ചോദിക്കും. ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ എന്താ, നമ്മൾ അവിടെ പോയിട്ട് കാണുന്ന സാധനങ്ങൾ വായിക്കാം. സോ जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, which means what you see has more value. Yet we put in a lot of superpowers towards invisibility. Do you see അതിനകത്തൊരു ഡൈലമയുണ്ട്, there is a contrast there. ഈ ഒരു സാധനം തന്നെയാണ് സൗണ്ടിനുള്ളത്. You can't see sound and it is completely invisible, which is why it can move you. ഇപ്പം നിങ്ങൾ ആരെങ്കിലും കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോന്നറിയില്ല, Pursuit of Happiness കണ്ടോ? Have you seen Pursuit of Happiness? And you would know the most iconic thing, the one line where he says, and that's when I realized happiness എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു ലൈൻ ഉണ്ട്. ആ ലൈൻ അത്രയും വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന്റെ മെയിൻ കാരണം ആ ലൈനിനെ സപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന മ്യൂസിക്കാണ്. സി, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് എ വോയിസ് ഓവർ. ആ ലൈനിനെ സപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു സ്കോറാണ് നമ്മളെ മൂവ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, ശരിയല്ലേ? പക്ഷേ റിയൽ ലൈഫിൽ we don't have music, there is no score, there is nothing that we can keep track of in terms of something that will help us move towards forward in life. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കിയേ, when you feel really energized, ഇപ്പം നമ്മളാരെങ്കിലും വെല്ലുവിളിക്കുകയാണ്, നമ്മൾ അങ്ങോട്ട് നടന്നു പോകണം, നമ്മളാരും സ്ലോ മോഷനിൽ നടന്നു പോകുന്ന സീനൊന്നും നമുക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല ഇൻ റിയൽ ലൈഫ്. സ്ലോ മോഷനിൽ നടന്നു പോകുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും അപ്പുറത്തേക്കുന്ന ആൾ കാര്യം കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് പോവുകയും ചെയ്യും. സ്ലോ മോഷനിൽ പോകാൻ പറ്റില്ല, ഗോപിചേട്ടന്റെ സ്കോർ നമുക്ക് ഇടാൻ പറ്റില്ല, നമുക്ക് അതൊക്കെ ഇങ്ങനെ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ടിൽ വരുന്ന കാര്യം നടക്കില്ല. എല്ലാവരുടെയും അറ്റ് എ പോയിന്റ് ഓഫ് ടൈം ഗ്രോയിങ് അപ്പ്, എല്ലാവരുടെയും അറ്റ്ലീസ്റ്റ് എന്റെ കാര്യത്തിലുണ്ടായിരുന്നു, ഇങ്ങനെ തിരിഞ്ഞു നിന്ന് സ്ലോ മോഷനിൽ നടക്കുമ്പോൾ ബാക്കിൽ ഫുള്ള് പൊട്ടിത്തെറി നടക്കുക, അപ്പൊ തീയുടെ ഇടയിൽ കൂടെ ഞാൻ ഇങ്ങനെ നടക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ. none of that happens in real life, but those are all cinematic liberties. And this is why cinema as a medium is very strong. It can take you through the journey of taking you from what you are in life to what you expect to see in life. We can always play it in our mind, yes, ശരിയാണ്. You can always play the background score in your mind. That is why it is called a background score. ഫോർഗ്രൗണ്ടിലാണെങ്കിൽ ഫ്രണ്ട് നിൽക്കുന്നവനും കേൾക്കും. ഫ്രണ്ട് നിൽക്കുന്നവൻ കേട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ പുള്ളിക്ക് എന്തായിരിക്കും തോന്നുന്നത്? അപ്പം ഈ ആക്ച്വലി ഞാനിത് ആലോചിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്, സിനിമ നടക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത്. ഇപ്പം ലാലേട്ടൻ്റെ ഇൻട്രൊഡക്ഷൻ സീനാണ് ആണെന്ന് വയ്ക്കാം. ഈ വേണ്ട, ഇപ്പം ഇതിനകത്ത് നമ്മുടെ നരസിംഹത്തിനകത്ത് സീൻ, അതിനകത്ത് പറയുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ, ഇന്ദുചൂടൻ ഒരു വ്യക്തിയിൽ ഒരു പ്രസ്ഥാനമാണ് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ അവിടുന്ന് കുറെ ആൾക്കാർ വെള്ളത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ഇങ്ങനെ വരുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ടല്ലോ, അവിടെ there's an incredible high background score that is happening. You feel very pumped up and എത്ര ആൾക്കാർ ഓടി വരുന്നൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. ഒരു നിമിഷം NF വർഗീസിന്റെ സൈഡിൽ നിന്ന് ആലോചിക്കുക. NF വർഗീസ് അവിടെ നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ ഇത്ര ആൾക്കാർ അലച്ചു പോയി വരുന്നുണ്ട്, അവിടെ ഒരാൾ ചെണ്ടയും കൊട്ടി ഭയങ്കര മ്യൂസിക്കും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ നടക്കുന്ന പോയിന്റ് ഒന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കുക. It would be very odd if you were NF Varghese. It would work if you are Hindu Chudan or a supporter, but if you are NF Varghese, the background score doesn't work for you. അപ്പം the way this plays is also based on the context. വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആണ്. What is it that you want to highlight? And this is why I come back to the fact of being invisible is when you execute a job and it is done in an extremely smooth way where the process or the complications of that thing is not visible, അവിടെയാണ് നമ്മുടെ എക്സ്പീരിയൻസും എക്സ്പെർട്ടീസും കാണുന്നത്. നമുക്കൊരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യുന്നതിനകത്തെ കോംപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് കാണാതെ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. അവിടെയാണ് ഇൻവിസിബിലിറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഫാക്ടർ വരുന്നത്. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വേർ ഐ ഹാഡ് ടു ബ്രിങ് അപ്പ് പൂവള്ളി. ദാറ്റ് വാസ് എനിക്ക് റിലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഏറ്റവും ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. ഇപ്പം ഏകലവ്യനകത്ത് സുരേഷ് ഗോപി സ്ലോ മോഷൻ നടക്കുന്നതിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയാൻ പറ്റുമോ? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കമ്മീഷണറിലെ ഡയലോഗ് അടിക്കുമ്പോൾ ബാക്കിൽ നടക്കുന്ന മ്യൂസിക് പുള്ളിയുടെ മൈൻഡിൽ മാത്രമാണെങ്കിൽ ഇപ്പുറത്തിരുന്ന് കാണുന്നവരുടെ അവസ്ഥ എന്തായിരിക്കും? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സീരിയൽ കാണുന്ന സമയത്ത് മ്യൂസിക് ഇല്ലായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ നടക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ എന്തായിരിക്കും? അപ്പം സോ ദർ ഇസ് എ ലോട്ട് ഓഫ് തിങ്സ്, യു നോ, ദി ഐഡിയ ഇസ് ടു പ്ലേ വിത്ത് യുവർ ഗിവൺ കോണ്ടെക്സ്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് യുവർ ഗിവൺ പൊസിഷൻ ഓഫ് ടൈം. അപ്പം സി, ദിസ് ഇസ് ഫൺ, ദിസ് ഇസ് റിയലി ഫൺ. ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ലൈഫിൽ ഒരു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് പറയാം. റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി മിക്സ് ചെയ്യണ സമയത്ത് റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി ആസ് എ ഫിലിം എന്താണ് അതിനകത്തുള്ളത്? അതിനകത്ത് ലീഡ് ആക്ടേഴ്സ് എല്ലാവരും മരിച്ചു പോവുക. എവറിബഡി ഡൈസ്. ഇറ്റ് ഹാസ് എലിമെന്റ്സ് ഓഫ് ഇറ്റ്സ് എ പീരിയഡ് ഫിലിം ആൻഡ് കറന്റ് അഫയേഴ്സ് ഫിലിം. It's got elements of politics in it, അല്ലേ? അവരുടെ മൂവ്മെന്റും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ അതിനകത്ത് they are talking about that. And it had a lot of things that you could not relate. It was shot in a completely new way. It had patriotism. Now, when was the last film that you know that had all of these elements and was successful? ഏത് പടത്തിലാണ് ഹീറോ എല്ലാവരും, ആമിർ ഖാനെ പോലുള്ളവരൊക്കെ എൻഡിൽ മരിച്ചിട്ട് പടം ഭയങ്കര സൂപ്പർ ഹിറ്റ് ആവുന്ന പടങ്ങൾ വളരെ കുറവാണ്. പീരിയഡ് ഫിലിംസ്, ദേ വർ നോട്ട് യൂഷ്വലി എ ബിഗ് ഹിറ്റ്. അതിൻ്റെതായിട്ടുള്ള ചാലഞ്ചസ് ഉണ്ട്, നമുക്ക് റിലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടാണ്. സോ റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി, when we were doing the film, we had no clue if it would be a hit, if people would accept it, because other, you know, you're throwing out your heart out there for a film that you don't know what will happen, and that is how it is in most of the cases, right? ഇപ്പൊ റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത്, അപ്പം റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി മിക്സ് ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഐ ഡോണ്ട് ഗോ ഹോം, ഞാൻ വീട്ടിൽ പോയില്ല. ആൻഡ് വൺ ഓഫ് ദ റീസൺസ് ദാറ്റ് ഐ ഹാഡ് ഫോർ ദാറ്റ് വാസ്, സി, ഞാൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആൾ സിനിമ തിയേറ്ററിൽ കാണുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ഇഫ് ഐ ഗെറ്റ് റിയലി മൂവ്ഡ് ഐ ക്രൈ. ഐ ഡോണ്ട് ഹോൾഡ് ബാക്ക് മൈ ടിയേഴ്സ്. എന്താ കാരണം എന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അതിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് ഈ ഡയറക്ടർ അത്രയും കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് ടു മൂവ് യു ഇമോഷണലി. അതിനകത്ത് ഞാൻ മസിൽ പിടിച്ചിരുന്നിട്ട് കാര്യമൊന്നുമില്ല. ദെൻ ഐ നോ ഐ എം നോട്ട് ഗെറ്റിംഗ് മൈ ടിക്കറ്റ്സ് വർത്ത്. അപ്പം വെൻ ഐ വാസ് വാച്ചിങ് റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി, അപ്പോൾ റംഗ് ദേ ബസന്തി ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഐ വാസ് വെരി മൂവ്ഡ്. അതിനകത്ത് നടക്കുന്ന ക്യാൻഡിൽ ലൈറ്റ് മാർച്ച്, കൂഞ്ചല എന്നുള്ള പാട്ട് നടക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് അവരെല്ലാവരും റേഡിയോ സ്റ്റേഷനിൽ കയറിയിട്ട് when they were killed, you know, I was really moved. Why were they killed? You know, ആ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ നടക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് the reason I did not go home was I carry these emotions with me, and it is a simple reason. ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ പടം മിക്സ് ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത്, I was an associate mix engineer at that time. When I work on this, if I don't feel convinced about what is happening on screen, how will anybody else watching it the first time, or like, you know, in a few minutes, get convinced of that? I have to be convinced of that. So I have to watch this so many times. I have to get into the character. I have to understand the character. I have to feel if this music is working, if not having music is working, if what we're doing is right, is it emotionally connecting to you? So I carry these emotions with me, and adugondana, so I don't go home, because I don't want to go home and, you know, still have these emotions back home. So I stayed back in the studio, and there are many stories of me staying back in the studio, and very interesting ones as well. So this is how I look at cinema, and this is how people who work in this, ഇതിനകത്ത് പണിയെടുക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ, ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ പറയാം, അഗ്നിപത്, ദി ഒറിജിനൽ അഗ്നിപത് വാസ് നോട്ട് എ ഹിറ്റ്. അതൊരു ഹിറ്റ് അല്ലായിരുന്നു. രണ്ടാമത് അഗ്നിപത്ത് ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് The pressure was, see, first hit Tyler's, you're still remaking that. It has to be a tribute, it has to be a remake, it has to work. അതിനകത്ത് അതിൻ്റെ ഡയറക്ടർ കരണിൻ്റെ ഫസ്റ്റ് ഫിലിമാണ്. സോ കരൺ is also a very good friend. So a lot of us, we wanted to find out how it, because if you see Agnipath, Swadesh കണ്ടവരുണ്ടോ? How many of you have seen Swadesh? Swadesh wasn't one of the biggest hit in the theaters. Swadesh actually made a lot of money on TV. And we didn't know if that was the case that was going to happen here as well. So it's the same thing for Agnipath. But I know so there is, yeah, Atul, that's fine. A lot of them didn't see it. Some people saw it. It's fine. This also exactly explains a lot of things, right? So this was one of, if you look at the costume designing, so it's the same costume designer who won the Oscar for Ben Kingsley's Gandhi. So that's why if you look at the way SRK is dressed in that, it's really good. And a lot of things are really good in that. So we worked on that, and that was a long time as well. What I'm coming back to say is all of these efforts that go there has to be invisible. That is the core power that you have with this. Karnam, if somebody watches a movie and comes and tells me, like, dude, I saw the movie, it sounds incredible. I really love this sound. I really love the way that the characters' voices was going in the head. I really loved all of the gun sounds and all of those things. What that tells me is I have failed at my job, which means I drew their attention towards sound and I took them away from the experience that is cinema. So that is a big thing. I have to be very conscious of the fact that I have to be invisible. I have to make sure it works, and it has to work in one whole. It is not about one part of this film that has to work. It has to work as a whole. And that is not easy. I mean, I wouldn't say I've done all of my films are incredibly good. No, I've done my fair share of mistakes. But this is what I learned to do very early on is if I make a mistake, I own up to it. I say it is a mistake that I did. It opens up two things. Of course, there will be tensions in that point. You don't know how that might play out. But for most of the times, for me, it has played out positively because they see honesty and they see a fact that you want to fix it. That is the main thing. At the end of the day, you want to give out something that works for them. Okay, so coming back to this, you have pre-production and production, and I've explained a bit about post-production as well. So shoot. Will you say that movie? Yeah, Swades. Yeah, it's actually there is no H. It's Swades. In fact, the first time I saw this, I read it as Swades, but then I was told it is Swades. Right. Okay, so two things here. Rohit, in real life, the best background music in which even changes our mood is rain. True, Rohit. Rain has different characteristics. Rohit, what stream are you in? I'll come to Varsha's thing as well. Just a quick thing. What is your stream? Tourism, right? Okay. So when you talk about locations or when you talk about places to visit, you talk about the specificity of that place. Like you have ecotourism, you have green tourism, you have exotic tourism, you have a lot of these things that are part of it, right? So when you say something that changes our mood is rain, what you need to understand is if you're sad and there is rain, it will still be the same emotion that you have. Now, exactly what I was coming to, Aishwarya. So rain brings back a lot of memories. So you have to remember one thing. All of our response to sounds is conditioned. We are conditioned to learn and to respond to a certain sound. ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ ഒരു കാര്യം പറയാം. ഇപ്പം നമ്മൾ കാട്ടിൽ പോകുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഇറ്റ്സ് വെരി ഡാർക്ക്, ഒന്നും കാണാൻ പറ്റില്ല. സോ which one do you think is more dangerous? ഒരു മുമ്പിൽ you have a tiger growl in the front. You don't see the tiger, you just hear that small, that rumble of the tiger in the front. Or scene two, scenario two, is you're there and there is a twig breaking or a branch breaking in the back. ഇതിൽ ഏതായിരിക്കും? Which one will stress you more, tiger or the branch? I'll look at the answers. Okay, we have one for branch. Krishna says branch. Yasser says obviously tiger. Good. Atul says tiger, branch, tiger, 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 tiger. Vinny says branch. Ayush says branch. So Arjun, I'm not sure if that's a cat. It's definitely tiger. Okay, so here's the thing. Majority of you say it's the tiger, correct? Yeah, so Indrajudin is scared of both, and there's nothing wrong to be scared of both. So now here is the second thing. I never told you if the tiger was tied or in a cage. And the reason you say tiger is because you know it's a tiger and you know it presents a sense of danger, correct? Now look at the second thing just for a moment. You're standing in the forest, it is pitch dark, you can't see anything, ഒന്നും കാണാൻ പറ്റില്ല. You hear a branch breaking at the back of your head, at the side over here. What will you imagine? What will you think it is? It can be a tiger, right, creeping up to you. If this was a horror film, it can be the intro to the ghost. If this is a comedy film, it can be someone who falls off the tree. If this was one of those action films, it can be that moment when you turn in that whole thing of, where we all like to turn in slow motion. Varsha says ninja. Yeah, but Varsha, ninjas are ideally meant to be silent. So if you hear the ninja, that's going to be a really badly trained ninja. Rohit says fair is yes. Peter Pan. If you've seen Peter Pan, you would see that as well. So what I wanted to tell you is the reason is your mind will go into an overdrive when you hear a sound that is not in your field of vision. And that is അതൊരു എവല്യൂഷണറി ക്യാരക്ടറിസ്റ്റിക് ആണ്. നമ്മുടെ കാഴ്ചയിൽ കാണുന്ന ഒരു സാധനത്തിന്റെ സൗണ്ട് അല്ല എങ്കിൽ you will feel more scared. And if you notice most of the horror films, when there's a shock, they immediately turn back, right? And the reason for that is all of us get scared of things that is not in our field of vision. And that is why evolutionarily also we are designed to be more susceptible to things that are outside of our field of vision. ഞാൻ എന്തിനാ പറഞ്ഞു വെച്ചാൽ മിക്സ് ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഇപ്പം നമുക്ക് 5.1 സൗണ്ട് ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പം ലെഫ്റ്റ് സെന്റർ റൈറ്റ്, ലെഫ്റ്റ് സറൗണ്ട്, റൈറ്റ് സറൗണ്ട്, അങ്ങനെ യു ഹാവ് ദാറ്റ് കൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് നിങ്ങൾ തിയേറ്ററിൽ പോയി കാണാം, സ്ക്രീനിന്റെ ബാക്കിൽ 3 സ്പീക്കേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ട്, ലെഫ്റ്റ് സെന്റർ റൈറ്റ്. പിന്നെ തിയേറ്ററിൽ ഇരിക്കുമ്പോൾ ഇപ്പുറത്തൊരു ഫുൾ സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് സ്പീക്കേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ടാവും, ഇപ്പുറത്തൊരു ഫുൾ സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് സ്പീക്കേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ടാവും. What you put in those speakers has to be there has to be a very valid reason, and it has to be very specifically decided. Allengil it will not serve the purpose. See, the end of the day, it's not. There is a fine line between showing off and delivering art. Is it random? But that line is very thin, and that is something you need to be aware of. So coming back to this, we have pre-production, which I spoke about, production, which is the whole shooting aspect, post-production, delivery, which is after you do this, like let's say if it's in terms of film, what will happen is I do the complete mix. So I have my dialogues, my music tracks, my sound effects. So everything from the shirt moving to the car coming and the hero punching and all of that. You have all of these sounds. Even sound is in two categories. There is sound design, which is basically creating sounds that never existed. So if you were to take the example of, which is the most often said example, is the example of Jurassic Park. No one knows how the dinosaurs sounded like, right? So you had to create something that is believable and sells the graphics, that is that. ASMR. I'm not sure what that is in the Jordan. A quick thing. How are we looking on time? Because I have to keep offsetting my current time. So 3:15, 4:15, 5:45. I'm assuming it is 5:45 there, right? Right. So that is what happens in and how much time do we have minimum? If you can let me know that also. So we have this one, and then you go to delivery. So once I do the mix, all of this is then recorded. And right now, today, we don't have a lot of prints. We have digital format. So you take the sound file and take the video file, and the video, the way it runs is you have 24 still pictures. So 24 frames that runs in 1 second. It's like, you click 24 pictures and you show that in 1 second. And this is married, and that is what you see in the theater. That is the delivery part. And then you have feedback, because it's very important to understand what the audience thinks. See, there is something very interesting about streaming. How many of you watch Netflix or Amazon Prime? Yeah. So this, I would assume, pretty much everybody. So my next question is, how often do you have to watch this with subtitles? എത്ര സബ്ടൈറ്റിൽസ് ഓൺ ചെയ്യുന്ന എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യം കാണും? എത്ര ആൾക്കാർ കാണാറുണ്ട്? Mini says never. Yasser says always. Okay, not that often means you have some things that you do and some things that you don't. Often, sometimes, not always, mostly. But there are points where you turn on the subtitles, and there are two reasons. Yeah, Aramal says always, Rohit says sometimes, Bhikkhu says mostly, Harish says depends. Harish, depends on what? If you can just say that. Varsha says accents are hard to understand. Yeah, absolutely true. I would agree. Sherlock was a bit hard even for me to understand as well. There are quite a few reasons why you don't turn on the subtitles, and one of the reasons in that is you may be listening to this in a very noisy environment. ഇല്ലേ? ഇപ്പം നമ്മള് ബസ്സിലിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്തല്ല, when you're traveling, you're watching this, and you can't really hear everything on your headphones. So you turn on the subtitles to understand the context. The other thing is when you don't understand what is being said because of the accent, or because you're not very familiar with the language. ഇനി മൂന്നാമതൊരെണ്ണമുണ്ട്. In case, what if all of the other things surrounding the dialogue are loud and you can't really hear the dialogues? അങ്ങനെ വരുന്ന സമയത്തും you turn on subtitles. So this is why the mix plays a very crucial part in understanding this, because the moment you start reading subtitles, you don't look at the actors on screen. You lose the beauty of the set, you lose the beauty of the color, you lose the beauty of the actors that are there. So there is, this is a very difficult thing. It's a very difficult line to cross. How do you do this? So from the sound point of view, dialogue is king. That is, നമ്മൾ വീട്ടിൽ ടി വി കാണുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ ലെവൽ സെറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ടിവിയുടെ റിമോട്ടിൽ ലെവൽ സെറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഡയലോഗ് കേട്ടിട്ട് പാട്ട് വരുമ്പോൾ അതിലും കൂടുതൽ പോവുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ താക്കുമ്പോൾ പിന്നെ പാട്ട് കഴിയുമ്പോൾ ഡയലോഗ് കേൾക്കണ്ട. So all of these things has to be taken care of, which is why feedback is a very important thing. So that is what works in film part. Then you have music. Musical വരുന്ന കാര്യം, it starts off from writing, which is composition, lyrics, ideating, and all of that. That is part of music. You go into producing that. How much of that needs to be recorded? How much of that needs to be electronic? How much of that needs to be synthesized? And you take all of those things that you've recorded and you bring it down into mixing, recording and mixing. So you take all of these elements and you make it a cohesive form. ഇതെല്ലാം കൂടെ ഒരുമിച്ച് ഒരു പാട്ടായിട്ട് കേൾക്കുന്ന രീതിക്ക്. It should not be like നമ്മൾ പാട്ട് കേൾക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് സിംഗർ ഒരു സ്ഥലത്തും ഡ്രമ്മർ വേറൊരു സ്ഥലത്താണെങ്കിൽ you can't feel the song. Then you have mastering and delivery. Mastering is basically mastering in the mastering music in the case you have multiple songs. അപ്പം ഞാൻ മിക്സ് ചെയ്തതിന് ശേഷം I want to understand how good will it be commercially, അതായത് in terms of competition, how will it sound, and I want it to sound good in multiple speakers as well. So Just give me a minute. Yeah. So you want it to sound good in multiple speakers as well. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഈ മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ സ്പീക്കേഴ്സിൽ ഇത് എങ്ങനെ കേൾക്കുന്നു see, all of those things is done by the mastering engineer. It is a very intricate art. It is a very fine art. You spend a lot of time doing that. And then again, it comes back to feedback on what you get and what you take from that. So that's what happens in the music part. And it's very similar to what happens in the film space. You know, the processes are very similar. ഇനി മൂന്നാമതൊരു കാര്യമാണ് ഇൻസ്റ്റലേഷൻ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആർട്ട് ഇൻസ്റ്റലേഷൻസ്. ഇപ്പം there's one thing that I did back in 2009. um, so I went to the Louvre Museum in Paris. That's where you have the Mona Lisa. But they had അവരൊരു ആർട്ട് ഇൻസ്റ്റലേഷൻ കമ്മീഷൻ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. It was with an artist called Shilpa Gupta. She's based in Bombay. അപ്പം what we had to do was we had to build a cloud form of a cloud that was made up of 1500 microphones. 1500 മൈക്രോഫോൺ വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് ആ ക്ലൗഡ് നിർമ്മിച്ചത്. അപ്പോൾ അതിനകത്തുള്ളതെന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ മൈക്രോഫോണിൻ്റെ ഷെല്ല് മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ. അതായത് only the cover was there. And inside the cover, we had speakers that were there. So you could walk towards the cloud and you would have these sounds coming towards you, going away from you, wind going away from you, taking you towards one point or the other. That cloud was telling you a story. That was what it was. And it was commissioned by the Louvre. And that is an incredible thing. That is something that requires you to interpret a lot of things. നമുക്ക് സൗണ്ട് ഇന്റർപ്രറ്റ് ചെയ്യാന്ന് പറയുന്നത് അത് കംപ്ലീറ്റ്ലി വേറൊരു ആർട്ട് ഫോമാണ്. ഇപ്പം ഇതിനൊരു നല്ലൊരു എക്സാമ്പിളാണ് നേരത്തെ മഴ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ. സോ റെയിൻ ഗിവ്സ് യു എ ലോട്ട് ഓഫ് ഇമോഷൻസ്. ആസ് എൻ എഞ്ചിനീയർ ആസ് എൻ ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റ് അതിനെ നമ്മൾ എങ്ങനെ ഇന്റർപ്രറ്റ് ചെയ്യും എന്നുള്ളത് വലിയൊരു ചോദ്യമാണ്. വാട്ട് ആർ ദ ട്രിക്സ് ദാറ്റ് യു ക്യാൻ യൂസ് ടു ഇന്റർപ്രറ്റ്? ദെർ ആർ, ആൻഡ് it is not about tricks. It is about what is it that you want to tell. Do you want to start it soft, bring it up slowly? Do you want to come in with thunder and all? Should it be drizzling? Should it be a downpour? ഇതൊക്കെ അതിൻ്റെ ഭാഗമാണ്. All of this will take the person through all of these emotions as well. അപ്പോൾ അതൊരു വലിയൊരു ഘടകമാണ്. So all of that comes. So you have to ideate, you have to produce that, you have to create what you have ideated. അതൊരു വലിയ കാര്യമാണ്. So you have all of these little factors, and because you're selling a concept, you have to execute that concept and you have to take feedback from that. ഇതിനകത്ത് ഞാൻ കോമൺ ആയിട്ട് കാണുന്ന ഫീഡ്ബാക്ക് is very important for me, and it should be important for all of you as well. You see, in your work, whatever stream that you are in, you will get feedbacks in multiple kinds of ways. They may be good, they may be constructive, they may be destructive. Just give me a minute. I'll just check why my camera went offline. So they may be constructive, they may be destructive. There are multiple ways that you can take, but the main thing is don't be disheartened by feedback, because feedback is very important for you, and feedback is what will let you grow. Once you have that feedback and once you can grow, let me just give me a minute. I'm not sure why my camera stopped. So feedback is very important, and feedback is what will let you grow. Whatever field it is that you're working, take feedback, learn from it, and then you can understand where to shape yourself, because you cannot afford to make all the mistakes. But there are mistakes that people have made, and you can learn from that. There are the mistakes that you may have made. You can learn from that. Of course, ആ ജേർണി എളുപ്പമായിരിക്കില്ല. ആദ്യത്തെ കുറച്ച് വർഷം നല്ല ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട് തന്നെയാണ് ഏതൊരു ഫീൽഡിലും. I'm not talking about sound. ഏതൊരു ഫീൽഡിലും ആദ്യത്തെ കുറച്ച് വർഷം is your formative years. അതിനകത്ത് എങ്ങനെ കടന്നു വരുന്നുവോ, and the key to succeeding in any field is to understand why do they need you. What makes you unique? നിങ്ങൾ എന്തിനാണ് അവിടെ വേണ്ടത്? It can be in anything. It can be even from the way you communicate. You can be a very happy, very fun person, very social person who has a lot of people skills, and that may be enough. See, I don't need to buy an encyclopedia. I mean, I don't need to learn the encyclopedia, I can buy one. So it's the same thing. When you network, you get access to a lot of people. You don't need to know everything around you, but you need to know how to get information. അപ്പം ഇതൊക്കെ ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ എക്സ്പീരിയൻസിൽ നിന്ന് പഠിച്ച പല കാര്യങ്ങളിലൊന്നാണ്. So in terms of technology, I've explained most of this in terms of recording, design and mixing and mastering and delivering as well. So in terms of mixing, so I come from the mixing part of this. അതാണ് ഞാൻ ഇത്രയും വർഷമായിട്ട് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. And I also work as an audio solution specialist for a company called Avid. Our product, we have a product called Pro Tools, which is which has a market share of I think around 95%. I mean, most of pretty much every mixing, every film mixing studio has got Pro Tools as well. And then you have mastering, delivering, which I explained as well. But this is the core thing. You have to be able to sell the experience. When I use the word sell, പലർക്കും അതൊരു നമ്മുടെ മനസ്സിലൊക്കെ വരുന്ന വീട് കയറി ഇറങ്ങി വിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരാളെ കുറിച്ചാണ്. No, selling is what brings success. See, I can do a very good mix. എനിക്ക് നല്ലൊരു മിക്സ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. So what I learned from Sreejesh sir was A.R. Rahman's engineer. He was one of my mentors as well. Sreejesh sir എൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്, see, a good mix is 60% of it being a good mix and 40% of it of you convincing the other person it is a good mix. You have to be able to sell your mix. It is the same thing. You have to be able to sell the idea of who you are. See, ആൾക്കാർ എല്ലാവരും they are valuing what you are as a concept. You have to be able to execute that. I'm not saying no. ഇപ്പം നമ്മൾ ഭയങ്കര സംഭവമാണെന്നൊക്കെ ഇന്റർവ്യൂവിൽ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവസാനം ജോലി കിട്ടുന്ന സമയത്ത് നമുക്ക് പെർഫോം ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിയില്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിൽ കാര്യം. You have to be honest about yourself, but you also have to know how to present that honesty in a way that helps them. That is the most important thing in success. If you want to climb up the ladder of your career in any field, it can be any field. Tourism, if it's even if you're looking at research, if you want to get a grant for the research, you have to be able to sell your research study. You have to be able to convince them why are you doing this particular study and why you need so much money. If you are in literature, you have to be able to sell the idea of interpreting something, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കവി ഇങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത് എന്ന് പറയണമെങ്കിൽ that you need to have enough understanding of that. You need to have enough experience, or you need to be well read to be able to do that. If you come from information technology, it is not just about building a software, it's also about convincing them that this is also the fastest algorithm, this is the fastest way to get from point A to point B. If you're a UI UX designer and you want to design a position to keep a button click, you have to be able to tell them, like, this is how you see most of the users coming in terms of the mouse operations, and this is where you want them to click so that it is not too far from where they were before. ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ സ്ക്രീനിൽ ഒരു അറ്റത്ത് നിന്ന് ഇതിന് ഓക്കെ അടിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഞാൻ ഈ അറ്റം വരെ കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ഐ എം ലൂസിങ് ദാറ്റ് ടൈം. All of this is selling a concept. It is selling the experience, and people pay for the experience. നമ്മൾ സിനിമയിൽ പോകുന്നത് it is for the experience. നമ്മൾ പാട്ട് കേൾക്കുന്നത് it is for the experience. See, I have a YouTube channel called The Mastering Project. Now, what I don't look at comments. I do look at comments occasionally on that, and this is not for any monetary purposes as well. But the reason why nostalgia works is because I'm assuming you're all degree students, right? Degree post PG students, I'm assuming. So the main thing for you, why would you, if you hear a song, okay, now in college, someone, there is always a point where you would have a crush on somebody, or something, or some sort of that happens, and it happens with everybody in any college, nothing to be embarrassed about. So if at that point of time, let's say you have a song, or you hear a song, and when you hear that song, when you feel really good, so what that triggers is, it's like an anchor point. So whenever you hear that song, you you get carried back to the same emotional state. um, that was it. That's why, sometimes when you go through breakups or whatever that is, and you hear that song, you feel more pain, because it takes you back to the state where you are happy and you miss that. At the end of the day, nobody wants to be sad. So that is the fundamental thing. So it's all about the experience that you have, or the experience that you can deliver in any field, be it physics, chemistry, maths. You would be surprised. Even in maths, for example, if you start speaking about Gödel's theorem, one of the things that Gödel's theorem says is maths cannot prove itself in a given constraint. It's all about the experience. You can use that argument in any philosophical argument. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ philosophical argument പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, there are, in terms of, if you're going towards metaphysics, another 7 different steps ഉണ്ട്. ആ 7 different steps വെച്ചിട്ട് they are trying to answer the reason of why the universe, and it is all about the experience about that people want. And the better you can give it to them, the more honestly you can give it to them, will put you in an extremely fast track in your career. That is the key to any career, whether it's sound, whether it's, there is a lot of hard work that comes with that, because selling is not an easy job. It comes from it comes from your past learnings, it comes from your mistakes, it comes from listening to people, it comes from understanding your speciality to the core, to the bare minimum, where you can talk about it without using any technical words. So that's what I had to talk about, and I received a few questions that Mini kindly sent me. Um, Anything that was unclear, or was there anything that you thought was not up to the expectation? Please put that on the chat, so you can tell me if this is what you wanted. So I'll just go through a quick few questions on this. What were the struggles that you had to face before and after entering the field? The answer is it is not easy. Like I said, when I decided to go for this, it is not an easy field to get into. And after entering the field also, if you have to prove yourself, it is not an easy job. You have to make yourself unique. That is the only way you can do that. What are the tricks you learned early on which helped you improve? It is a service industry. It's about selling the experience. It is about making the other person comfortable with the idea that you are giving them. അത് വളരെ key ആണ്. So that is what I learned earlier. And to get that, അത് ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ you need to be very strong on technicalities. You need to be able to talk with conviction. You need to be confident about what you're doing. And the only way you can be confident about what you're doing is when you know that what you're doing is true for you. You cannot say the same for the other person. You have to be confident that it is true for you, and you have to not doubt yourself. So that's what I learned. So this is an interesting question. Sir, as you analyze the magical beat of Indian music, which is your favorite one, Western or Eastern? I kind of like all kinds of music. I watch everything. നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞ വിശ്വസിക്കില്ല, കൃഷ്ണനും രാധയും എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ സിനിമ ഞാൻ 4 പ്രാവശ്യം കണ്ടു. And my wife was like, I'm going to take this picture and put it on Facebook just to show the world what my husband is doing to me. This is the kind of movies he watches. But I watched every film. I don't know if you've seen this. You would have seen that video that was viral a few years back on Facebook, where this guy is running with this big heart, and he gets he gets into a fight with the villains in the middle, and he throws the heart. It goes through the hospital window, falls into the patient, and the patient is magically healed. അത് കണ്ടവരാരെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടോ? Has anyone seen that clip? Yeah, I saw that movie. It's a movie called Hrudaya Kale, and that scene in that context looks incredibly hilarious. But that film is a brilliantly written spoof. It is brilliantly written. It is executed so well. I don't know if you've seen a movie. There was a movie a few years back called Quick and Murugan, which is also on the same lines of this. So I watch everything. And I watch everything because I need to understand what is good and what is bad, because there is no absolute line for saying this is good and anything below this is bad. It is not possible. You have to watch everything. And when you watch everything and then you come back and എന്നിട്ട് ഇത് നമ്മൾ കാണുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് തന്നെ മനസ്സിലാവും what works and what does not work, and why does something work and why does something not work. So and I pick up things from everything that is there. So don't be ashamed of watching all of these things. I watch. What was your big hit that got you into mainstream? Let me think. I think it was Kamine that got me in, because Kamine, after watching Kamine, I remember Selvaragavan. He did a film called Ayirathil. So he came to me because he liked the mix of Kamine, and that's how I got to do Ayirathil. And from there, it went on to Billa 2 and all of those. So, one thing will lead to the other. It's a chain of things. Um, it is not one thing. So when you execute one good thing and one good thing happens in your life, it will lead to a lot of good things. All of, because this is all about like ഞാൻ തിരിച്ച് അതിലേക്ക് തന്നെ വരികയാണ്. When you sell the experience of what it is and it becomes accepted. See, sometimes it may not be accepted. Swades was a lovely film, but it was only accepted in TV. I mean, later on. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ, you can't help it. You spend a lot of these many number of hours and days and months working on a film, that finally somebody will watch for 2.5 hours on in the theater and say, "Meh, not too bad." Or, that's what you get after all of your effort, putting in for all of this time. അപ്പൊ ഈ പറയുന്ന ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുകൾ എല്ലാത്തിലും ഉണ്ട്, ഇല്ലാന്നില്ല. പക്ഷെ ചിലപ്പം അതിന്റെ റിസൾട്ട് വളരെ വളരെ നല്ലതായിരിക്കും. One thing will lead to the other. അപ്പം I think it is Kamine. As an audio engineer, what would you regard as your best skill? എൻ്റെ ബെസ്റ്റ് സ്കിൽ എന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്ന മെയിൻ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യുക ഇസ് മൈ അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡിങ് ഓഫ് ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽസ്. ഞാൻ ഞാൻ കിട്ടുന്നൊക്കെ വായിക്കും, പറ്റുന്നത്രയും പഠിക്കും, ആൻഡ് ഐ ലേൺ ഇറ്റ് ഇൻ എ വേ ദാറ്റ് ഐ get it down to a way that I can explain it to myself without technicalities. And that I use in expressing things. കാരണം ഇതൊക്കെ പഠിക്കുന്ന എന്തിനാ? At the end of the day, we have to be able to convince the other person that it is a good mix. അപ്പം ഈ ടെക്നീക്സ് ഒക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് how do you work? And that comes from experience. Even science proved that music can heal human mind and can make him better. What is your opinion about adding some musical treatments into our medical system? See, music can heal. ഞാൻ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ റെയിൻ, നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ എക്സാമ്പിൾ പോലെ റെയിൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നൊരു സംഭവമുണ്ട്. റെയിൻ ട്രീറ്റ്സ് യു ഡിഫറെൻ്റ്ലി. വൈറ്റ് നോയ്സ് is something a lot of people use for sleeping. Sleeping in the സമയത്ത് if you play back white noise, it calms you down. There's a lot of these things. നമ്മൾ ഇപ്പൊ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടാവും. You would have the theta tones, beta tones എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്, ഡെൽറ്റ സൗണ്ട്സ് എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്, in the music for relaxation എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് കുറേ ഉണ്ട്. But the main thing is this is very subjective. ഇത്രയും സബ്ജക്റ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യം. See, one of the things behind a lot of behind treatment is you have to believe it works. And when you have a medicine, for example, നമുക്ക് തലവേദനയുള്ളപ്പോൾ നമ്മളൊരു പാനഡോൾ കഴിക്കണം. It is not the Panadol that is treating you. It is the Panadol enabling your own body to treat yourself. So basically, it relieves you. It triggers another parallel process in your body that causes it to heal itself. That is the same thing. So if musical things can calm people, and there are a lot of things as well. There is music therapy, which is also something that is very well known and coming up as well. But it is very difficult to scientifically put a number to this. അതൊരു അത്രയും നാളും ഇതൊരു ഓൾട്ടർനേറ്റീവ് മെഡിസിൻ ആയിട്ടായിരിക്കും നിൽക്കുക എന്നാണ് ദാറ്റ്സ് വാട്ട് ഐ ഫീൽ. ബട്ട് ഐ എം നോട്ട് മെഡിക്കലി ക്വാളിഫൈഡ് ടു ആൻസർ ദാറ്റ് question. What were difficulties faced while doing a Dolby Atmos mix? Now, Dolby Atmos mix it's a specific sound format where you can address sounds individually in all of those speakers as well. But what is difficult in this is it is the same challenges. ഞാൻ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ എല്ലാ ചാലഞ്ചും ഡോൾബി അറ്റ്മോസിനും ഉണ്ട്. there is no difference. It is exactly the same. It is the exact same kind of creative struggles you will have, or creative challenges that you will have. It is the exact same technical things that you will have. So there was nothing specific, but the one of the main things in this was when I was doing Dolby, that was 2000, 2012. That was many years back, 8 years back. അപ്പോൾ അന്നേരം എന്താ വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ there were no theaters where you could play back Dolby. അപ്പം convincing, it's like a chicken and egg. Theaters will not open if there are no films, and films will not do if there are no theaters. So it's a chicken and egg. But fortunately, Dolby has done an incredible job, and now you have like a huge number of theaters in India. So my technical difficulties were the same actually. Different in the പറയുന്നില്ല. We can only experience sound when it is played. We cannot see it, touch it, and each and every individual has their own favorites. Then how can we find a common taste and add it in music which creates a hit list? That's a very interesting question. നിങ്ങൾ എത്ര പേര് യൂട്യൂബിൽ പാട്ട് കേൾക്കാറുണ്ട്? എല്ലാവരും കേൾക്കാറുണ്ടല്ലേ? യൂട്യൂബിൽ പാട്ട് കേൾക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഇപ്പം ഇഫ് യു ആർ ലിസണിങ് ടു യുവർ ഫേവറേറ്റ് സോങ്, അതിന് തൊട്ടപ്പുറത്ത് യൂട്യൂബ് ബിക്സ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് യു വിൽ ഫൈൻഡ് എ പ്ലേലിസ്റ്റ് ദാറ്റ് കംസ് അപ്പ് അല്ലേ? Oh, thank you, Vinny. So that playlist takes up songs that are commonly played by people who play this genre of song, and then it tries and creates a list, and that list is being constantly done. See, നമ്മൾ ആരും ശ്രദ്ധിക്കാത്തൊരു കാര്യമുണ്ട്. Machine learning is a huge thing when it comes to audio today. There are programs that is there that will tell you, okay, what you're playing is a percussion, what you're playing is vocals, what you're playing is guitar, what you're playing is a piano, and this is what it should sound like. There are things that will automatically rebalance a lot of things for you. Machine learning is huge. AI is huge. I don't know if you saw the രണ്ടു ദിവസം മുന്നേ ആപ്പിളിന്റെ WWDC 2020 ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ആരെങ്കിലും കണ്ടിരുന്നോ? അത് വേൾഡ് വൈഡ് ഡെവലപ്പർ കോൺഫറൻസ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അതിനകത്ത് അവർ അനൗൺസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു their AirPod Pro is very expensive, but their AirPod Pro is going to be enabled for Dolby Atmos with head tracking. So technology is actually driving a lot of things, and technology is driving these things. What are they selling? They are selling the experience. അതിനകത്ത് നോക്കുക. Why do you like an Apple product? Because it feels good. It looks good. The visibility is good. There's a lot of things that and you like, and there are a lot of people who like Samsung as well because of functionalities. It's all about the experience. അപ്പം ഇത് trickle down ചെയ്ത് എല്ലായിടത്തും ഈ കാര്യങ്ങൾ വരുന്നുണ്ട് at the end of the day. So yeah, so that is what you can do. So how do you find a common taste? Common taste is very subjective. If I like to listen to Coldplay, and somebody else likes to listen to baby metal. And have you heard of the genre called baby metal? ആരെങ്കിലും കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ? It's a very unique thing. Whenever you go online on YouTube, just check out BABY, baby metal. Some people like it. Some people like gore grind. Some people like throat singing, like the Mongolian throat singing. So there's all of these different things, and it is very, very subjective. Finding a common taste can probably work for you, but if you're building an algorithm, it goes back to finding out what people generally play from and make an estimate from that. It is basically a statistical distribution. Let me see if there are any questions that I missed in this. I'll take 5 more minutes. Is that okay for you guys, or have I gone to 3:45? 4:45. 5:15. What is the time there? What is the time there right now? 5:15. Okay. So I'll just take another 5 more minutes. Okay, Rohit has a question. So the sound om makes our mind calm. Is that the magic of that particular sound, or the response of our body towards that sound? Rohit, different sounds make different people calm. For some people, it may be om. For some people, it may be listening to om. For some people, it may be reciting om. Some people it may be rain, some people it may be the sound of birds. It is all about what makes you calm in that time. It is about your personal experience, and sound is very personal. It is about what works for you. So it can be your response or your mental state, or maybe you had a good, you remember having listened to Om in a very peaceful scenario, so that later on when you hear it, it triggers that peaceful scenario again. Like I said, when you hear the song of when you first had a crush or something. Minnie's question was, would it be ambitious to end to conclude by 5:15 PPT alone? Actually, I did conclude the PPT by 5:15. I didn't see that, which I thought was okay. So I'm not too bad on timing. The reason I put this up is you really have to give these people a big round of applause. I'm pretty sure they spend a lot of time and effort um, building this whole seminar webinar for you as well. So that's why I'll keep this here for a longer time while I just go through the questions also. So Bhikkhu Kuriakos, if you wouldn't come into this industry, which other industry would you prefer? What is your next passion? That is a very interesting question. To be honest, I really did not consider any other industry. um, what is my next passion? Um, I can't think of it. I mean, I like magic. That is one thing, but that's more of a hobby and not really a passion. One cannot have multiple passions. I think if you have too many passions, uh, you ഈ പല വള്ളത്തിൽ കാല് വെക്കുക എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പോലെ ഇപ്പം you will be diverted very often. You won't have a focus on what you wanted to do. If I don't come, so I really liked biotechnology. That was an industry that I was very interested in. Uh, so I wanted to get into that, but at that point, I think only IIT Powai had biotechnology, and there were very limited seats, and I wasn't too bright enough to get into that. So yeah, so that would have been something. So SJN creation also, magic. See my whole thing with magic happened when so I എൻ്റെ വീട് ട്രിവാൻഡ്രത്താണ്. അപ്പം ഈ എൻട്രൻസ് എക്സാം കഴിഞ്ഞ സമയത്ത്, അത് ആഫ്റ്റർ 12th എൻ്റെ എൻട്രൻസ് എക്സാം കഴിഞ്ഞ സമയത്ത് അന്നേരം ഒരു സ്ട്രൈക്ക് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. സോ ദർ വാസ് എ ലോങ്ങർ ടൈം. ഐ തിങ്ക് അവർ അഡ്മിഷൻസ് സ്റ്റാർട്ടഡ് ഇൻ സെപ്റ്റംബർ ഓർ ഒക്ടോബർ, അത്രയും ഡിലേ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പം ആ സമയത്ത് ഈ ഈസ്റ്റ് ഫോർട്ടിൽ ഓണത്തിന് മറ്റേ ഫെയർ ഉണ്ടാവും. യു ഹാവ് ഓൾ ഓഫ് ദീസ് ഷോ, ദീസ് small shops and everything that come there. And അപ്പം മിക്കവാറും അങ്ങനെ പോകുന്ന സ്ഥലം you will see one shop that is selling all of these magic tricks. ഇല്ലേ? You put the ball in a cup, you close it, you open it, the ball vanishes, you close it, you open it, the ball is back. ഇങ്ങനത്തെ കുറേ സാധനം. And the very interesting thing about magic is, I've heard this say, when you meet someone, you ask, how do you do? But when you meet a magician, you ask, how do you do it? So that's a slight difference that happens. And what this has caused me to do is, it has forced me to think about everything from an alternate angle. See, magic is about the experience. When you do a trick, it is about understanding. It's about what the audience feels through. Even though you as a person know that it is a trick, but if you can't convince yourself, it comes back to the same thing as the story I said about Rangde Basanti. ഇപ്പം നമുക്ക് നമ്മളെ തന്നെ കൺവിൻസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ലെങ്കിൽ, നമ്മളിപ്പം ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് കൈയൊക്കെ വിറച്ച് ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ പോവുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, if you feel very awkward in doing things, it won't look good. You cannot sell the experience. So magic is about one of those things where people willingly want to be tricked, and they are happy to be tricked as well. But it's been quite a few years since I pursued that. But what that really opened up my mind was to think outside the box, and I think that was very important as well. So yeah, so that is my point on magic. So I think I've answered most of the questions. Okay, so Harish has a question. You have worked with great directors like Christopher Nolan. According to you, what makes them special? How did they become successful? So I have not directly interacted with Christopher Nolan. I worked on a version of Dark Knight, Inception, and all of that. So I've interacted with the team that handles that. But in my opinion, what makes them special is their art of storytelling. See, what makes anybody special is you like them. You like them not as their personality, you like their art. You have to be able to split personality and art. That is very important. You may like a character. For example, um, you may like Indu Judan, in Narasimha. But that does not represent how Mohanlal as a person. Mohanlal അങ്ങനെ ആയിരിക്കില്ല. Mohanlal is a different person. You like the character. You have to be able to separate the art from the artist. And one thing about Christopher Nolan's thing is how real he makes it. So if you look at the Batman trilogy, you had Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. So these things, for example, Dark Knight is all about chaos. Dark Knight Rises is all about fear. So you take a very specific emotion and you play with it, and he's very brilliant in doing things like that. So I think his idea of connecting with the audience, his idea of storytelling, his techniques, his idea of lighting, all of those play into his success. And success is not about one thing. Success of a film is about an entire team that is led by a director who's like the team leader. So that's what I think about Christopher Nolan. How was your experience working with Anurag Kashyap? So Anurag is a very chill out person. I've done so. Wasipur was one of the films that I worked with him. He's a very funny person. He's got an incredible sense of humor. So I'll tell you the story about Wasipur. So Wasipur നടക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് I was mixing two films. One was Gangs of Wasipur, and the other one was Rowdy Rathod. Now Rowdy Rathod and Gangs of Wasipur are completely opposite films. See, Rowdy Rathod has its audience. അല്ലേ? Working with Prabhudeva, he has another incredible sense of humor. Rowdy Rathod case, Rowdy Rathod, when we were mixing, and it was, as we finished the second last day, we told him like, so Prabhu sir, so we're finishing mix tomorrow, so why don't we have a party tomorrow? So his question was, why tomorrow? Why not today? So he's that kind of a person. So when I was doing this, I would mix the whole day for Rowdy Rathod, and at night it would be Wasipur. And these were completely different films. I had to prepare myself for both of these films. It was completely polarized as well. Some of the times when Anurag would come, he would come late in the night with Kunal Sharma. Kunal Sharma was a sound designer. He did so. Whatever you see on that is, I would say, a lot of it is Kunal's work. He's such a brilliant sound designer. You should watch most of his films as well. Tumbad is another one that is a brilliant work of his. What would happen is I would be sleeping at night, but sometimes when he comes, so he would just take a piece of paper, write down his points, keep it there, and go back. So he would not wake me up. People, the more uh, bigger the directors are, you'll see them becoming a lot more people friendly, a lot more humble, and that's what I learned. See, I cannot grow by myself, and there is no way that I alone am going to grow. The only way I can grow is by having people around me grow as well. Like നമ്മൾ പറയാറില്ലേ, standing on the shoulder of giants. അതങ്ങനെ തന്നെയാണ്. I can have people around me to grow, and so that you grow up as an industry. It is not one man's work. It is an industry that provides, and that is how you look at any career as well. You look at the benefit of the industry. When you look at the benefit of the industry, that will reward you 10 times more in everything. That will give you a name, that will give you fame, that will give you knowledge, that will give you networks, that will give you contacts. ഇതൊക്കെ അവിടുന്ന് വരുന്ന കാര്യമാണ്. So yeah, that's what I feel about this. Any other questions? Okay. In that case, I have to really thank Mini, because Mini was a person who told me about doing something like this. I have not done something like this ever before. I have not spoken to a group of students or people who are that younger than me, because I don't know if it's easy to connect with that kind of an age gap. But I hope that you really you enjoyed this and you had something to take back from it. And I sincerely hope that it wasn't a waste of your 3 hours, and that it was somewhat productive. So I have to thank Minnie, for pulling all of this through, for being consistent, for being such a sweetheart that she is, for consistently telling me, like, these are the points that you have to look at, these are the kind of students, is this time okay for you, do you want us to shift around that time, and all of that. So thank you so much, Minnie. Fatima, for that incredible intro. I know I myself thought like "ഞാനിത്ര വലിയ ആളാണോ?" Thank you, Fatima. Aishwarya, Krishna. I think Krishna is behind the technical things for all of this. You have three different teams. So Krishna, Harish, Krishna, Samprit, Sagar, Lenu, and Advait. Thank you, guys. And thank you to all of the people who have spent this much time listening to me talk about stuff, which is a huge investment on your part, especially in this time when you have a lot of really interesting things that you can do. But I thank you for deciding to spend that part of your time with me. So yeah, so I think at this point I'll stop the screen share.
I just have a single question, I think, which we missed uh, while answering. I'm going to just hijack this and ask that question anyway, because this relates to the subject that I teach them.
Right.
So, how does one's personality or emotional awareness to influence people make them succeed in your industry? Is ego an issue ever? Because you deal with different kind of people. How was the social skill aspect of it come into play? Is the industry newcomer friendly who is not really prepared to handle an emotional onslaught of rejections?
See, rejections will happen in any industry. It is not something that is unique to this industry. You have to have people skills, because however you may want to word it, you deal with people, and it is your people skills that put you as a unique person, and that is what puts you up on the map, and that is what pushes you in your career. Now, if you think about going for a job, you have to understand, why would the person pay you so much money? It has to be for what you bring to the table, and what you bring to the table should be yours, should be believable, and should be unique. Now, unique is not something you can always get. Of course, let's be very real, you cannot always bring a unique thing to the table. It is very difficult, it takes years of experience as well. But what is yours, and what is you as a person, and how approachable are you, or how much you can go with the team, is the core philosophy. You look at anyone. Even if you read the philosophy of Netflix, you will see that they believe in people, because people is what drives anything forward. If you read our company's philosophy, our company believes in people. All of the people in like who my colleagues are all stalwarts in their industry. They're really good music engineers. They're highly professional technicians. They know stuff inside out. They are very good orators. All of this is part of your personality. Now, I think there is also an underlying question to this: is, would you need to adapt your personality to meet a different need? Would you need to change who you are? And what I feel is, you cannot fundamentally change who you are. I mean, if you don't like the color pink, you don't like the color pink. You cannot force yourself to like the color pink. But what you can do is, you can always, hide your dislikes. But because at the end of the day, unless it is you who are the client, you need to have a clear vision of what you want. But if you are working for someone, it's a service industry, you have to be able to cater to what that one is. Like, a lot of people ask me, do I have a specific sound for my mix? And this is something that I also took up, which I think there's another really really good engineer called Shadab Rain, who mixes some fantastic stuff. So what I think is, you may have your sound, but at the end of the day, what you are delivering is what belongs to the artist. So you should not put your sound on top of his. You should modify yours to go along with his, because that is when they become convinced. That is become you then get a goodwill, a credibility, or like, let's say, a point, and then you start building upon that. It doesn't hurt to smile. You don't lose anything by when you smile. Rejections are there, unfortunately. That is because people don't have time to evaluate your skills. So if you want to go out in the industry, and when you're studying, try and the best thing you can do is, you can spread your knowledge, make yourself known within social circles. See, social media is a very, very strong thing. You can make yourself known in the social media for someone who's a brilliant student, or who's very inquisitive, or who has like a lot of ideas. That is very important. You need to be able to push yourself out on the social media platform as well. Social media is no longer just a hangout place. It is a very crucial part of anyone's career. So push yourself in that. Don't just start sharing things that are random and things like that, but also try and see what you can contribute from your end. Whether it be a new idea, a new line of thought, or a new technique, whatever it is, or even if you're just asking opinions, and how you can build on that. All of those things, make sure you have all of that. So that's what I feel. Your personality is key, but don't change you can't really change your personality, but you can adapt it to the other person. Ego is there. Ego happens every time. As long as you don't have it, it is fine. Ego is like exaggerated glorification of oneself. That is ego. As long as you don't glorify yourself beyond what you really are, don't oversell. You should be fine.
That's wonderful. And if you could just give me in 3 words, if I could just do something like that, the work culture of industry that you associate yourself with. Three
Oh, I'm
words.
sorry, I lost you, Mini. You were breaking. 3 words
Three
of
words to describe the work culture.
3 words to describe the work culture that I am in currently, right? Um, it's There's passion, there's dedication, um, and there is people skills. You can't drive it without these, because if you don't have passion, just dedication will not take you anywhere. It's like hard work but not smart work. If you only have passion and no dedication and people skills, you're going to be an island. It's not going to take you up anywhere. If you only have people skills and no passion or dedication, there's only so much you can go forward, before they find out that you really don't have any stuff in you. Whereas if you have, it's a combination of all these three: passion, dedication, and people skills. Yeah, I mean, that's I know there'll be a slight delay between this.
Good evening, all. I am here to say vote of thanks. So, actually, it was a really good session. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have witnessed it as a memorable and successful event. And also, I thank all the members who gathered here for the great success of our webinar session. First of all, I thank our chief speaker, Mr. Sreejesh Nair. My words are not enough to express our sincere gratitude towards you, sir. On behalf of CMS College, I would like to thank Mr. Sreejesh Nair, who graced us with his thought provoking address, set to a perfect platform for our college. And next, I would like to thank our principal for making this event possible, and our department head, Mrs. Rashmi ma'am, and our course coordinator, Mini ma'am, and all our friends who have been working on this for more than a week. And so this is not a prepared speech actually, but ശരിക്കും പറയുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ it was a great experience with you, sir. it was really informative and it was a great experience. It's actually our first time degree course കയറി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഞങ്ങളുടെ ആദ്യത്തെ വെബിനാർ ആണ്, and it was a great success, I would say that. And
Thank
it
you.
was all because of you, sir. It was a great and wonderful event.
Thank you. I mean, I cannot blame myself. I have to blame myself, but two very core people I really had to thank was, of course, the principal and the course coordinator, Rashmi ma'am, as well, because I think it is very important that they are. It is very important to see that they are taking all of these steps to further the cause of what you are in. See, ഞാൻ പഠിക്കുന്ന സമയത്തൊന്നും ഇതില്ലായിരുന്നു. And the world moves on. The world changes very fast as well. So these efforts are incredible. And Advaita പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ prepared അല്ലാത്ത speech. So I can tell you honestly. So when Mini asked me, like, we have like just a test run, I asked her to move it ahead by half an hour. I made this in that half an hour, but I spent 2 days thinking about this, what to tell you. And so I think the best things are ones that come from your heart and that are not prepared. And thank you, Advait, for those words.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah, so thank you everyone for who's joined. And I think Mini, are we done? I think because
this is it. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. Yes. We'll connect afterwards.
Yeah, and everyone take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun.
Stay safe.
That's the best thing. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.